I did it for a company, but now I'm going to do this on my own.
Mm-hmm.
If I did video, I would say, hey, I can do your video for you. If I was I don't even know, a carpet layer, right? Then I could reach out to people and say, hey, like I can do your carpet for you,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like it doesn't really, like whatever thing you did, the marketplace paid you to do it. So there's obviously value there. And that's just like an easy litmus test. But what I would do if I were on Skool is I would probably sell 1 times more than memberships in the beginning because you can generate more cash faster. And so I would do one-on-one stuff or small group stuff. I would sell bundles of calls and help.
Mm-hmm.
And I would sell them at, 500 to 5,000 in terms of the price point.
Mm-hmm.
And I would use that to generate cash. And then I would add my continuity in. And then I would use that cash to advertise to drive both. And so I would drive to the continuity most likely.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would upsell over phones. And I think the big thing that everyone's missing with, not everyone, but a lot of people are missing who are starting out is like, you have to be willing to hop on the phone.
Yeah.
And they're like, but that's not scalable at $10 a month. I'm like, dude, you have no members. It's completely scalable. Your time is completely free. Like you can't be busy and broke. Like you can have time, right? Or you can have money. You can't have no time and also not have money. Like you just trade one for the other, right? And so I would be hopping on the phone with people. And I mean, the simplest version of this is you have a free community. You have the one-time upsell that's inside the community. You drive people to the free thing. You provide value to them in the free thing. Then you can upsell those people into the one-time thing. And then over time, eventually have the paid continuity that you start as your second community.
Mm-hmm.
That is, I mean, the fastest way to money is free community, bundle of thing that is expensive, and then that is a defined end thing that you sell.
And that would actually be able to push a button from day one because you have the Facebook ads integration, right? So that's an ad setting up for complete registration.
Yeah.
Auto DM, hey, get a free onboarding call.
Yeah.
Give value in the onboarding call. Do you need a paid call? Here it is.
Yeah.
So
if you want more follow-up on this, here's one call. I can do 5 more with you if you want. And that should take you to this. By the end of the 5th call, you should have this outcome.
Yeah.
That's like fairly compelling. It's not a super hard pitch to make.
Why do you think people still don't do it?
Because they're afraid and they're lazy. It's one of the two.
How do you lazy? I don't know if we can help with, but how can you overcome the fear?
And I'll say lazy. People get really offended by that. Which good, get offended, do something. But it's usually just like it's. I had this quote the other day. It's never been easier to start a business. It's also never been easier to do nothing.
Mm.
And so people are just distracted. There's hundreds of billions of dollars that are getting pumped at us to distract us.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to have some level of basic ability to focus to say, I'm not going to watch Netflix. I'm not going to watch these sports games. I'm not going to, scroll on social media for 8 hours a day. I'm going to reach out to people. And so like first level is you can actually do something. And then the second one is when you start doing it, being okay with getting rejected or having things not work out immediately. And it really just comes down to a term that gets overused and is overused and understood, understanded, which is motivation, right? If you lost everything tomorrow and you had your kids and you're the one who's surviving, you'd probably have a tremendous motivation to figure something out. And I think a lot of people don't have huge motivation. And so what I see that is, rather than saying like what motivates people, everything that we describe for people who are incredibly motivated usually comes from deprivation.
Mm-hmm.
It's not they have this big thing they want to go after. It's this thing they're usually getting away from.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're very motivated to eat when you're starving. You're very motivated to sleep when you're sleepy, right? And so the question is, what would make someone very motivated to make money? Now you'd think, it means not having money. But it's not that. It's the perception of not having enough money.
Mm-hmm.
And I think those are two very different things.
Mm-hmm.
Like I know very poor people who live paycheck to paycheck and are very comfortable doing that because they're the richest people of their friends.
Mm-hmm.
And I know people who are, mega billionaires who are more deprived of money than anyone I know because they want to do bigger things and they don't have enough money to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're so motivated and work every hour of the day to do it. And so I think it comes down to the discrepancy between what you want and what you have, which is actually in some ways the inverse of happiness, which is like you want to want less than you have.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of achieving, right, it's you want to want way more than you have.
Yeah.
And so it's this interesting balance.
Yeah. And I think that's where the Skool games community is so good because when you get in and you get surrounded by people who are doing things right, and you start to see the opportunity and you start kind of to see on what level other people perform. I was never so motivated to grow on Skool. Then when I saw anime shreds, I was like, I have to figure this out. So I think it's you could create the deprivation by actually joining a community like the Skool games where you see what other people are doing.
And what we're talking about there is reference group. So Harvard did this big fancy study, but basically the 5 people that you compare yourself to, not necessarily that you spend the most time with, but who you compare yourself to, has the highest predictor of your outcomes, which I think is pretty cool. So the goal is to get around a whole bunch of people who are better than you. And the nice thing is that if you're a beginner, there's a lot of people better than you.
I asked Layla the same question, and I would love to kind of hear your answer about comparison. Because when we talk about, getting into this field, there are certain people that kind of use the comparison as fuel. And then there are people that completely self-sabotage and kind of get paralyzed out of that. What do you think is happening in either or direction, and how can you better use it?
I don't know about the inner workings of anyone, myself included. But I don't think comparison is good or bad. I think it's just a measurement tool. They are here, I am here. When they post, they get more views. When they run things, they get more than I do, or they get less than I do. And the part that gets people in trouble is the second part where they say, and therefore I am bad, or therefore I am good. And so I think comparison is a very useful tool to figure out where you stand and where you can improve. And I think that's all it is. Is if so, like, I always want to compare myself. I want to look at other people who are ahead of me and see what they're doing that I'm not doing so I can learn. And if someone's behind me, I don't really compare much at all because, like, why bother? And so, or if they are behind me, but they're better at me at something, then I want to figure out why they're better than me at that thing. But I think that's the only, like, that is the chief use of comparison. Everything else, I don't see the benefit.
I would love to highlight something that I think many people don't do that you do. Is like when I just said about comparison, I think most people, they don't even go a tenth as deep as you because they're like, oh, me or the other person. But you're like, what are they posting? How many likes? So you're already paying attention to different criteria and you see it so much more nuanced. And one thing that you were shouting me out for was like, go read Evelyn's post, read between the lines. And I know when I came to this kind of niche that I'm in right now, I was looking, what do they do? Read between the lines and emulate. How can people start emulating more and kind of learning between the lines of what community champions or what you do?
I think attention to detail is also a skill.